Discovery and warning. The galactic hegemony had existed for 12,000 years. In that time, they had conquered or assimilated over 300 sentient species across 8 spiral arms of the Milky Way. Their technology was unmatched, their military might unquestioned, and their dominion, as far as the High Council was concerned, absolute, until they discovered Sol's system. Admiral Vorthax stood on the command deck of the inevitable conquest, his primary eyes fixed on the holographic display while his secondary set monitored the crew. The massive dreadnought, nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern, represented the pinnacle of hegemony engineering. Behind it trailed a fleet of 300 warships, enough firepower to subjugate an entire sector. "We are approaching the outer boundary of the system," Admiral reported his navigation officer, a slender Phloxian whose translucent skin pulsed with blue bioluminescence. Long-range scans confirm 9 planets, with the third one showing signs of civilization. Vorthax's mandibles clicked in anticipation. "Excellent. What do we know about the inhabitants?" Science Officer Zrelne approached, her hovering platform keeping her at eye level with the 8-foot-tall admiral. "Very little, sir. They call themselves humans or Terrans. The hegemony database has conflicting reports. They are isolated, having never responded to any of our standard first contact protocols." "Another primitive species to add to our collection," Vorthax said dismissively. "Prepare the standard subjugation package." "We'll—" "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Drek, his voice unnaturally high. "We're receiving a transmission, but it's not from the planet." Vorthax swiveled his massive head. "Explain." "It's coming from the void between stars, sir. It's using an ancient hegemony emergency frequency, one that hasn't been in use for millennia." The bridge fell silent. "Put it through," Vorthax ordered. The holographic display flickered, and a message appeared. It was text only, written in classical hegemony script. "Turn back. Earth is a trap. The humans are not what they appear. We learned too late. Save yourselves." For several heartbeats, no one spoke. Then Vorthax laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed across the bridge. "Someone has a peculiar sense of humor," he said. "Trace the origin of that transmission." "Impossible, sir," Drek replied. "It seems to be coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously." Zrelna's skin had turned a pale yellow, a sign of concern among her species. "Admiral, there are legends about this sector. The Arxer expedition that disappeared 800 years ago was last reported in this vicinity." "The Arxer expedition was lost to a spatial anomaly," Vorthax said dismissively. "Every cadet knows that." "But what if?" "Enough." Vorthax's secondary eyes narrowed. "I will not have superstition on my bridge. We proceed as planned." Over the next 3 days, as the fleet pushed deeper into the Sol system, the transmissions continued. They grew more frequent, more desperate. "They consume ye inner joy, like nothing you've encountered. Their technology appears primitive. It is not. They have evolved in ways no species should." With each message, unease spread through the fleet like a contagion. Vorthax was forced to replace 2 captains who requested to withdraw. He made examples of them, ensuring the rest of his commanders understood the cost of cowardice. When they reached the asteroid belt, they discovered the first anomaly, a network of small installations scattered across thousands of planetoids. Scans indicated they were rudimentary mining operations, nothing that posed a threat to the fleet. "These humans are inefficient," Vorthax observed. "Their technology appears to be at least a millennium behind ours." Zrelna wasn't convinced. "Then why do our scans show they've only been spacefaring for less than 3 centuries? No species advances from atmospheric flight to asteroid mining in such a short time." The Admiral dismissed her concerns. "Some evolve faster than others. It makes no difference. Their fate is sealed. As they approached Mars, they detected extensive colonies beneath the surface, again with technology that seemed oddly mismatched. Some areas showed energy signatures consistent with fusion power, while others appeared to use far more primitive energy sources. The transmissions had now become a constant background noise, flooding every emergency channel. They see you. T-A-Y-V-E, always C-E-N-U. The trap is already sprung. They wanted you to come. By the time the fleet reached lunar orbit around Earth, Vorthax had ordered all communication systems reconfigured to block the mysterious messages. He would not allow fear to undermine his mission. The blue planet filled the main view screen, its surface a patchwork of landmasses, oceans, and lights from human cities. Scans revealed a population of just over 9 billion, concentrated in urban centers. Send the standard ultimatum, Vorthax commanded. They have one planetary rotation to surrender unconditionally or face extinction. The message was transmitted in over 5,000 galactic languages, along with visual demonstrations of the fleet's weapons capabilities. The response was immediate and unexpected. A single human voice replied, speaking perfect hegemony standard. "We've been expecting you, Admiral Vorthax. We accept your invitation to demonstrate our capabilities." Before Vorthax could process how the humans knew his name, proximity alarms screamed across the fleet. Thousands of small objects had detached from the lunar surface, previously hidden from their scanners. They moved with impossible speed, crossing the distance to the fleet in seconds. Evasive maneuvers. Vorthax roared. All ships, open fire. The space between Earth and its moon erupted in a dazzling display of energy weapons. Most of the small objects were destroyed, but enough got through. They attached themselves to the hulls of the hegemony vessels. "What are they?" Vorthax demanded. Zrilna's voice was barely audible. "They appear to be feeding, sir." On the external cameras, the objects had flattened against the hulls, spreading like liquid metal. Where they touched, the advanced alloys of the warships began to glow, then dim, as if something was drawing the energy directly from the molecular bonds. Throughout the fleet, systems failed. Weapons went offline. Shields collapsed. Engines sputtered and died. The mighty armada hung in space, paralyzed. "Impossible," whispered Vorthax. On the main screen, the human reappeared. He, or at least the being appeared to be male, looked remarkably ordinary. Bictal, symmetrical features, no visible defensive adaptations. Yet there was something in those eyes that made Vorthax's exoskeleton tighten around his body. "We've studied your kind for thousands of years, Admiral," the human said conversationally. "Every time you send a scout ship to our sector, we've captured it, learned from it, and sent back exactly the data you expected to receive. You believe us primitive because that's what we wanted you to believe." Vorthax found his voice. "What are you?" The human smiled, revealing flat teeth unsuited for combat. "We're what happens when a species evolves on a death world, Admiral. Earth wasn't always the garden you see now. For millions of years, it was a crucible of extinction events, massive predators, and climate extremes. We didn't just survive, we thrived." The ship shuddered as more of the strange devices attached themselves to the hull. "Those are not weapons," the human continued. "They're merely hungry, a symbiotic species we discovered in the Kuiper Belt. They consume energy, and in return, they share what they learn. Right now, they're learning everything about your magnificent fleet." Vorthax slammed his armored fist on the console. "The hegemony will not be defied. If we fall, 1,000 more fleets will come." "No," the human said simply. "They won't, because you're going to deliver our message." The main screen split to show the rest of the fleet. One by one, the warships were changing, transforming as the strange entities consumed and reconstructed them. Only the inevitable conquest remained untouched. "Who sent the warnings?" Vorthax asked, his voice hollow. The human's expression softened slightly. The last admiral who came here with conquest in mind. We gave him the same choice we're giving you." Behind the human, another figure stepped into view. Vorthax's four eyes widened in shock. It was an Arxer, a member of the species believed lost 8 centuries ago. But this one was different. Its eyes held the same unsettling quality as the humans. "Hello, kinsman," the Arxer said. "I tried to warn you." Understanding crashed over Vorthax like a tidal wave. "You've changed them." "No," the human corrected. "We've evolved together. Symbiosis, Admiral. It's what Earth specializes in. Now, you have a choice. Join us, or carry our message back to the hegemony." Outside, the transformed fleet now surrounded the inevitable conquest. The ships no longer resembled hegemony vessels. They were sleeker, darker, with organic curves replacing the angular military design. Zrelna approached the admiral, her skin now pure white, the color of absolute terror among her kind. "Sir, analysis indicates those ships are now more advanced than anything in our records. If they attack..." Vorthax stared at the human on the screen. For the first time in his 300-year military career, he felt true fear. "What message would you have me deliver?" he asked finally. The human smiled again, but this time, Vorthax noticed something else behind those eyes, something ancient and patient and utterly alien. "Tell them Earth is open for diplomatic relations. Tell them we're interested in trade, cultural exchange, and peaceful coexistence. Tell them we harbor no ill will for past misunderstandings." The human paused, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed, layered with harmonics that seemed to vibrate through Vorthax's very cells. "But make sure they understand. Earth is not to be threatened. Ever. We've spent 10,000 years preparing for this moment. Admiral, the warnings you received, they were for your benefit. Earth isn't a trap. It's an opportunity, but only for those wise enough to recognize it." As the inevitable conquest turned to leave the system, its engines mysteriously restored to function, Vorthax watched the transformed fleet settle into orbit around Earth. He thought about the warnings, about the fear that had spread through his crew, about the casual display of technology so advanced it appeared to defy natural law. Earth wasn't a trap. It was something far more terrifying, a crucible that had forged a species unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. And now, they were ready to emerge. The final transmission came as they passed the orbit of Jupiter. "They let you go, for a liaison. Remember, T8. This time, Vorthax didn't have it blocked. This time, he listened. Counterattack and revelation. 6 months after the encounter with Earth, Admiral Vorthax stood before the High Council of the Galactic Hegemony. The vast chamber on the capital world of Axiom Prime stretched nearly a kilometer across, its vaulted ceiling embedded with living crystals that shifted in patterns representing the conquered territories of the hegemony. Vorthax noted with bitter amusement that the sector containing Sol system had been deliberately left dark. "You ask us to believe," said High Counselor Vexmore, her massive form rising from the central dais, "that a single primitive world not only repelled our most advanced fleet, but did so without firing a single conventional weapon." The 12 other counselors murmured their disbelief. They represented the oldest and most powerful species in the hegemony, beings who had been conquering worlds when humans were still discovering fire. "I have provided all sensor logs and the testimonies of my entire command staff," Vorthax replied, his voice steady despite the knowledge that execution was the standard response to failure of this magnitude. "Logs can be falsified," hissed Counselor Zrath, a serpentine being whose species had been among the founding members of the hegemony. "We believe you encountered something in that system, perhaps a spatial anomaly or an unknown weapon, and it has affected your judgment." Vorthax felt his secondary heart rate increase. "I know what I saw, counselors. The humans have technology beyond our understanding. They've been watching us, studying us, preparing for us. They allowed me to return as a courtesy and a warning." "A courtesy," Vexmore's laughter echoed through the chamber. No species shows courtesy to the hegemony. They show submission or they show defiance, and the latter is always met with extinction. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of frustration in his species. Then perhaps it's time the hegemony learned a new approach. The humans spoke of diplomatic relations, trade. Silence. Vexmore slammed her ceremonial staff against the floor. You were sent to subjugate, not to negotiate. Your failure will not become hegemony policy. The council chamber fell into tense silence as Vexmore consulted with her fellow counselors through their neural link. After several minutes, she addressed Vorthax again. The council has decided. You will be given an opportunity to redeem yourself. Admiral, you will return to Sol system with the 7th and 9th battle groups, over 1,000 ships. You will obliterate this Earth and its inhabitants, and you will recover our lost vessels. Vorthax felt his exoskeleton grow cold. Counselors, I must advise against this course of action. The humans are an anomaly, nothing more, interrupted Counselor's wrath. Whatever advantage they had against your fleet, they cannot stand against the full might of the hegemony. And if I refuse? Vorthax asked quietly. Vexmore's massive head tilted slightly. Then your family line will be terminated, and another admiral will complete the mission. The outcome is inevitable, Vorthax. Only your participation is in question. 3 weeks later, the largest armada ever assembled by the hegemony emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Sol system. 1,022 warships, carrying over 15 million troops and enough firepower to reduce a planet to molten slag. Admiral Vorthax, reinstated but closely watched by political officer Krenva, stood on the bridge of the new flagship, Hegemony's Wrath. The massive vessel dwarfed even the inevitable conquest, stretching 25 kilometers from bow to stern and bristling with weapons designed specifically to counter what little was understood of human technology. No signs of the mysterious transmissions this time, Krenva noted with satisfaction. Perhaps they were merely a psychological trick. Vorthax said nothing. He had warned the council. He had pleaded. Now, he could only watch as the hegemony committed what he believed would be its greatest mistake. The armada advanced through the outer system, weapons charged and shields at maximum. They encountered no resistance at Neptune, no defenses at Uranus. The moons of Saturn and Jupiter, each large enough to house substantial military installations, showed only the same primitive mining operations detected during the first expedition. You see, Admiral, Krenva said smugly, your humans are hiding. They know they cannot stand against us. As they approached the asteroid belt, long-range sensors detected movement. Thousands of objects were breaking away from the planetoids, accelerating toward the fleet. The same trick won't work twice, Krenva announced. All ships deploy anti-adhesive fields. Destroy those parasites. The space between Mars and Jupiter lit up as energy weapons lashed out, vaporizing the approaching objects. But where one was destroyed, 10 more appeared, emerging from hiding places throughout the belt. There are too many, shouted the tactical officer. Vorthax watched impassively as the first wave reached the outer ships of the Armada. But instead of attaching themselves to the hulls as before, these objects detonated. Each explosion was small, barely enough to scratch the armor of a hegemony warship. Krenva laughed. Is this their best effort? Pathetic. The Admiral's secondary eyes noticed something the others had missed. Where each explosion occurred, a small cloud remained, microscopic particles suspended in space. As the fleet moved forward, ships passed through these clouds, and the screaming began. Communication channels erupted with the sounds of agony across multiple species. On the external cameras, Vorthax could see crew members on the outer decks of affected ships, clawing at their exoskeletons, scales, or skin. What is happening? Demanded Krenva. A science officer frantically analyzed the data. The explosions released some kind of nanoscopic organisms. They're penetrating the ship's environmental systems and attacking the crews directly. That's impossible, Crenve insisted. Our biofilters are designed to stop known biological threats. Vorthax finished for him. The humans evolved on a planet with millions of pathogenic organisms. They've had their entire history to develop biological warfare. Did you think they wouldn't use it? On the tactical display, nearly 200 ships were already reporting critical crew casualties. The organisms, whatever they were, seemed tailored to attack multiple species simultaneously, targeting different biological systems, but achieving the same result. Incapacitation within minutes, death within hours. Order the affected ships to self-destruct. Crenve commanded. We will not allow these weapons to study our biology further. Vorthax turned all four eyes on the political officer. You would sacrifice 200,000 soldiers rather than retreat. The hegemony does not retreat, Crenve snarled. Before Vorthax could respond, a new alert sounded. From Mars, hundreds of objects were launching, but these were different. Sleek vessels moving with the same impossible speed he had witnessed during the first encounter. Those are our ships, he whispered, the ones that were transformed. But they had changed even further in the intervening months. They were now almost organic in appearance, their hulls rippling like muscle tissue as they accelerated to velocities no hegemony ship could match. The transformed fleet tore through the Armada's formation like predators through a herd. They didn't fire conventional weapons. They simply touched hegemony ships, and where they touched, matter seemed to phase out of existence. Massive warships were carved apart, sections disappearing as if they had never been. All ships, focus fire on the human vessels. Crenve screamed into the communication system. Ignore the biological weapons. Destroy those ships. It was like watching children with sticks trying to fight against a hurricane. The hegemony fleet, the mightiest ever assembled, was being systematically dismantled. Some captains attempted to flee, only to find their engines no longer responded to commands. As the carnage unfolded, the main communication screen activated. The same human from 6 months ago appeared, looking exactly as Vorthax remembered. Admiral. The human greeted him with the same conversational tone. I see the hegemony didn't heed your warning. Crenve pushed forward. Who are you to address the hegemony? I am Political Officer Crenve, and I demand. You are in no position to demand anything, the human said mildly. But since you ask, my name is David Chen, Director of Exospecies Relations for the Terran Collective. What have you done to our ships? Vorthax asked, ignoring Crenve's sputtering rage. David's expression softened slightly. We've improved them, Admiral, just as we've improved the crews who chose to stay with us. The camera view widened to show the bridge of what had once been a hegemony cruiser. Standing beside David were representatives of at least a dozen species, including several that Vorthax recognized as hegemony citizens. But they were changed. Their eyes held that same unsettling quality, and their bodies showed subtle alterations. You've infected them, Crenve accused. Mind control, genetic manipulation. These are violations of galactic law. David actually laughed at that. Interesting that you mentioned galactic law, given that your first action upon discovering a new species was to attempt genocide. He turned his attention back to Vorthax. Admiral, we gave you the chance to deliver our message peacefully. The hegemony chose violence instead. Now, we will deliver the message ourselves. On the tactical display, the remaining hegemony ships, less than 300 now, were being herded into a tight formation. The transformed vessels surrounded them, not attacking but containing. What do you want? Vorthax asked. The same thing we wanted 6 months ago, David replied. Diplomatic relations, trade, cultural exchange, peaceful coexistence. The difference is that now we'll be speaking directly to your High Council. Crenve's skin had turned a mottled gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The High Council would never. The High Council will receive us, David interrupted, because in approximately 6 hours, we will arrive at Axiom Prime. This encounter at the asteroid belt, It was never the main event. Political officer. It was the diversion. The blood drained from Vorthax's face as he realized the implication. You've already sent ships to the hegemony capital. David nodded. We've been exploring your territory for decades, Admiral. Mapping your worlds, studying your defenses, understanding your politics. The ships we sent to Axiom Prime departed Earth 3 months ago. They'll arrive about the same time news of this defeat would have reached your leaders. That's impossible, insisted Krenva. No ship can cross that distance in 3 months. No hegemony ship, David corrected. But we stopped thinking like the hegemony a long time ago. Vorthax felt an emotion he hadn't experienced since his youth. Wonder. The warnings, he said suddenly. They weren't just about Earth being a trap. They were trying to save us from ourselves. David's expression became solemn. Precisely, Admiral. The Arxer expedition discovered what happens when a species that has relied on conquest encounters one that has evolved beyond it. We're not interested in conquering the hegemony. We want to help it evolve. Into what? Vorthax asked. Into something better, came the simple reply. We've spent millennia fighting among ourselves, Admiral. We've poisoned our world, slaughtered our own kind, brought countless species to extinction. And then we looked to the stars and asked, is this what awaits us? More of the same, just on a galactic scale. The human's eyes seemed to look beyond Vorthax, beyond the ship, into some distant future. We decided the answer had to be no. We developed in isolation, not because we couldn't reach out, but because we weren't ready. We needed to solve our own problems first, to evolve beyond our destructive instincts. And now you think you have. Krenva sneered. No, David said, surprising them both. We're still evolving. But we've learned something crucial that the hegemony hasn't. Evolution works better through cooperation than through competition. The symbionts you encountered, the ones you call parasites, they showed us that. On the screen behind David, images appeared showing the history of Earth, ancient wars, environmental catastrophes, mass extinctions. Then, a turning point, the discovery of the strange entities in the Kuiper Belt, entities that could bond with other life forms, sharing knowledge and abilities across species boundaries. We call them the connectors, David explained. They don't control us, and we don't control them. We grow together, each making the other stronger. When the Arxer expedition found us, we offered them the same choice we're offering the hegemony now. Join us in symbiosis, or remain separate but at peace. The image shifted to show the descendants of the Arxer crew, changed but recognizable, working alongside humans and other species in what appeared to be a massive space habitat. This is why Earth is a trap, Vorthax realized. Not because you destroy those who find you, but because we transform them, David finished. Those who join us never want to return to what they were. Those who don't join us never forget what they've seen. The human turned to address someone off-screen, then faced the camera again. We're transferring control of your remaining ships back to their commanders. Admiral, you're free to return to Axiom Prime. In fact, we encourage it. By the time you arrive, the first phase of our diplomatic mission will be complete. And if the hegemony refuses your diplomacy, Krenva demanded. David's expression remained unchanged. There is no refusal, political officer. The era of the hegemony as a conquering force ended the moment you entered Sol's system. The only question now is whether it evolves or stagnates. The screen went dark, and the tactical display showed the transformed ships withdrawing, leaving the surviving hegemony vessels adrift but functional. Vorthax turned to the bridge crew. Set course for Axiom Prime, maximum speed. Krenva grabbed the Admiral's arm. You would obey these primitives. Vorthax looked down at the political officer with all 4 eyes. They're not primitives, Krenva. They're what comes after the hegemony. And I, for one, am curious to see what that looks like. The journey back to Axiom Prime took 17 days. When they arrived, Vorthax expected to find destruction, occupation, or chaos. Instead, he found transformation. The massive orbital defenses had been neither destroyed nor disabled. They had been enhanced, now glowing with the same organic energy he had seen in the transformed ships. The planet itself appeared unchanged from orbit, but as they descended toward the High Council chambers, the differences became apparent. The rigid, militaristic architecture now flowed with living patterns. Citizens of all species moved with purpose but without fear. And in the central plaza, where statues of conquered worlds had once stood, a new monument had been erected, a simple sphere of what appeared to be water, held together by nothing, with light and information flowing through it in mesmerizing patterns. "What is that?" asked Krenva, his voice barely a whisper. A passing citizen, a member of Vorthax's own species, overheard and smiled. "That is a connector colony, shared freely with all who wish to learn. It contains the history of Earth and the hegemony, unfiltered and complete. The humans have conquered us," Krenva groaned. The citizen's secondary eyes blinked in amusement. "No, political officer. They freed us. There's a difference." In the High Council chamber, Vorthax found not the 12 ancient counselors, but a diverse assembly of representatives from every hegemony species, plus humans and several species he didn't recognize. High Counselor Vexmore sat among them, her massive form somehow less imposing than before. "Admiral Vorthax," she greeted him, "we owe you an apology. You tried to warn us." Before he could respond, David Chen appeared at his side. The Admiral understood more quickly than most. "That's a quality we value." Vorthax studied the human, still unsettled by those eyes that seemed to see beyond normal perception. "You spoke of transformation. Is this what you meant? Political restructuring?" "That's just the surface," David replied. "The real transformation is happening on a deeper level. The connectors are helping us understand each other, not just communicate, but truly comprehend different modes of thought, different evolutionary paths. And you control these connectors," Krenve accused. David shook his head. "No one controls them. They're a species unto themselves, with their own goals and desires. But they found that cooperation with other sentient life forms benefits everyone. They're a bridge, not a weapon." Vexmore gestured to an empty section of the chamber. "We've reserved seats for both of you in the new council. Your perspectives will be valuable as we navigate this transition." Vorthax felt a strange sensation in his primary heart, something like hope. "And what becomes of the hegemony?" "The name remains for now," David said. "But its purpose changes, no longer a force for conquest, but a network for cooperation. There are threats in this galaxy that require unity. Threats even humans and connectors can't face alone." "Threats?" Vorthax asked. "Greater than Earth." David's expression grew serious. "Much greater, Admiral. The universe is vaster and stranger than any of us imagined. That's why we needed to end this conflict quickly, because time is not our ally." As the council session began, Vorthax took his seat, watching as species that had been enemies for millennia now worked together with surprising harmony. He thought about the warnings that had haunted his first expedition. Earth is a trap. It was indeed. A trap not of destruction, but of transformation. A trap that had caught the mighty hegemony and changed it into something new, something that might, against all odds, be better. And as he listened to the humans outline their vision for the future, a future of shared knowledge, cooperative evolution, and preparation for challenges yet to come, Vorthax finally understood the truth. Earth hadn't been warning the hegemony away. Earth had been inviting them in.